Here on the Safe Haven podcast, any names mentioned should not be considered as suspects unless officially stated as such by law enforcement. Any opinions during interviews on this podcast are the opinions of the interviewee and don't reflect the opinions of the Safe Haven podcast or the AMU cold case team. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. On February 6, 2008, 48-year-old Judith Petty left her grandmother's house to walk to a library 3 blocks away to return some books. After that, we don't know what happened. The family searched for her throughout the night into the following morning. The next day, her father drove 13 miles to their family farm to find the entire property engulfed in flames. When the fire was out, that's when they found Judith's remains in the cellar. The medical examiner said she was dead before the fire started. The local sheriff at the time said he knew it was a homicide and investigated it as such. Now, 14 years later, law enforcement says that Judith must have taken her own life or died of natural causes, and there's nothing to investigate. Welcome to the latest episode of Safe Haven, the unsolved murder of Judith Petty. And I'm joined, as always, by Melissa. How are you doing tonight, Melissa?
I'm good, Justin. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. It's been a long day, long night so far, so...
Yeah, you should tell the listeners what you were just doing.
Oh, I had to play a 9-ball playoff game tonight because by some small, strange, weird miracle... the team I'm on somehow made it to the playoffs, so I had to do like a tournament mode, and usually I'm alright. I'm pretty high ranking. I'm a prior state champion here in Indiana, but I took 5 years off when I started podcasting, and that really has affected my game. So trying to get back to where I was, and it's not easy. I've only been playing again for 4 or 5 months, so it's a little rough. I got all the knowledge. It's just the muscle memory that I lost. So, yeah, we ended up losing, though. But
it was a good season, though. You're like a jack of all trades, Justin.
Well, it was a bad season. We were last place. Don't get me wrong. I was the best player on the team. Oh. I was definitely by far the best player on the team because I'm pretty good. But yeah, I don't even know how we even made it in. We didn't even get a wild card spot. Like, we legit made it into the playoffs, and I'm like, all right, so I guess I have to play pool today. Cool.
Yeah. Well, speaking of pool, that can lead in. When you said that, I was like, wow, I had no idea that you were such a good pool player. I think you mentioned that when we were in West Virginia, but...
So, I guess going on pool, that brings us into one of our updates. We have a little bit of information. We found out that there was no Nip and Q event that night. So again, why do we have Chris suggesting this was how he remembers clearly picking her up and it being due to this Ring Girl event? I mean, I don't know if he realizes we can check that stuff, but we can, and there was no event that night, so...
No, I know that we've been mentioning it for a few episodes now, talking about this Ring Girl competition. First, we thought it was a tough man, then we heard it was the Ring Girl, and finally this week, we were able to confirm that there was no Ring Girl event that night. So when I had talked to Chris, he had said, yes, the bar closed early because of this Ring Girl competition. And again, I said, well, what time did that start? As we talked about in the last episode. And he's like, well, I don't know. You could check it out. And I said, well, I will. But it's so interesting to bank something so clearly on something that didn't happen that night. So I'm not sure why he said that, or if he just clearly does not remember that night at all.
I don't know. I think it could go either way, but I don't know. I'm kind of wishy-washy on that. Like, I'm not saying one way or the other, but we are providing the listeners with the updated information as we know it. So
correct. Yep. So we know that there was no Nip and Q Ring Girl event going on the 6th.
Yes, and we have previously mentioned the name James Bonnet as well, and we got in contact with him. Melissa, why don't you tell us how that went?
Yeah, so I've been trying to find James Bonnet for a couple of weeks now because, of course, we thought that he close the bar early to go to this ring girl competition. So I finally got a hold of his son, who's also a James Bonnet, via Facebook. And so I was talking with him. He was very nice in the beginning, just trying to, get a hold of his dad for me. And as he was messaging me with his dad, showing him my messages and that I wanted to talk to him, just out of the blue, he said to me that his dad told him to tell me bye and blocked me. And I have to say, this is my first block in this case. But we're not saying James had anything to do with this or not, but of all the people to block or not want to talk, it was just came out of left field for me, just because he really didn't know what I was even wanting to ask him. My two questions were, did you close early, and was Judy in the bar? And I didn't even get to those without being blocked and no longer communicating with me. So I just wanted to, update everyone and throw that out there. And it was just a really odd response, because everyone else has been very open and talking.
Yeah, and I'll be the first one to say, I've been blocked before while I was doing investigations into unsolved murders and stuff like that. And for the listeners, like I said, you can take it with a grain of salt. Yep. We're not sure why. We don't care. I've had people block me just because they don't want anything to do with it. They don't want their name associated with it, whether they were potentially involved or not. Some people just don't want the attention or the drama or their name dragged through the mud, because when you're doing the things that we're doing, as soon as we throw a name out, whether it be negative or positive, that name is forever associated with the case, whether negative or positive, like I said. So I have been blocked several times during investigations, which it really doesn't bother me too much. I'm actually more surprised when people are willing to talk. So some people just don't want to be associated with it, don't want their name out there, because unfortunately we have a society that they'll get a name and then they'll go and start doxing people. And that's not right. We don't want any of our listeners to be doing that. That's not on you to assume somebody is involved in something when they might not be. So we did want to throw that information out there, though.
Yeah, and it's just, if anyone knows James and wants to talk on our behalf, and we're not law enforcement, I'm just, we're just looking for information about that night. And, we'll pass all this information on to law enforcement who can follow up if needed. But it was just an interesting reaction, just something I didn't expect, from the bartender when we look at everybody else in this case. You know what I mean? So it was just an odd response. But definitely we can move on then. Those are our two big updates so far.
Well, and I mean, it's a good update to have because we've mentioned him before, and we literally asked listeners, say, hey, if you know this guy, can you have him reach out to us? Yep. So having his name and doing this update was an important thing. So,
absolutely. Good point, Justin.
And going on that, we are going to have our arson expert on next week, and he is going to follow up with what we're going to do today in this episode. So we wanted to start with the reports that we do have. We do have the fire report, and because it was undetermined, we're allowed to publicly put it out there. So Alan himself, who is the arson expert, he has 3 pages already of questions and notes because we sent him every single picture that we had. We sent him the fire report, and we ask you listeners after this episode if there are any questions that you have for him. Go into the comments and ask the questions. And not to be rude or anything like that, but if you're just going to state your opinion of what you think, try to keep that in a separate post so we can keep everything organized under one thread so we know where everything is at. So if you do have questions, we will create a separate thread that literally just says questions for the arson expert and place your questions there. If you have a comment of what you think happened or whatever, put that under a different thread from theories. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not trying to be rude about it, but we have a lot of information. We have almost 1,000 people in the group who are all talking. So we try to keep everything as organized as we can because we already have so much stuff going on with this case right now.
We do. And we have a lot of interaction on the Facebook group. So if you haven't joined yet, you definitely want to join. There's lots of good conversation, discussions going on regarding the case. And so the more
Absolutely.
minds together, the better.
No, the Facebook group has been outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't thank everybody enough for coming and joining and sharing your ideas and thoughts and speculations or theories or all of that stuff. Like, the information has been priceless and it helps us out quite a bit. So we do appreciate those conversations. So, according to the fire report, on February 9th, 2008, Brad Hartley, who was the investigative officer, was notified of a fire which occurred on or about February 7th, 2008, when Judy's remains were discovered. Brad traveled to the scene and met up with Terry Hefner, who is the chief of Waverly Volunteer Fire Department, to discuss the situation on February 9th. So it was 2 days after Mr. Petty discovered the fire on the morning of February 7th, when the investigation of the fire and Judy's remains on the 9th actually started from Waverly Fire Department. The report states the Wood County Fire Investigation Team conducted an investigation and search of the main structure on a previous date. Unfortunately, nothing had been located during this search. So what do you think about that, Melissa?
Well, I find it interesting when you see it laid out that it's 2 days after the fact. So that just kind of lines up with what we said. So Judy goes missing on the 6th. They show up on the 7th. There's a fire, but they can't do anything. And then you've got the 8th. That's when I believe that the Wood County Fire Department was looking. And then on the 9th is actually after she was found on the 8th. The 9th is when Brad Hartley and his team show up. So you've already had 2 different agencies involved and kind of at the scene trying to collect evidence. So you have, again, many people who are present and not contaminating the scene. I don't know if that's what was going on, but they unfortunately were not able to recover much on those dates.
Mm-hmm.
So
Definitely.
When Brad was there, he did request for a second investigator to show up at the scene, who was Jason Baltic. He was the assistant fire marshal, and we did meet up with Jason when we were in town. He met us out at the property, and he was really helpful in being able to provide us some more things to consider in regards to the fire. To be fair, though, it's been 14 years. He was the assistant. He wasn't the main investigator. So we had all the photos with us. We were showing him the photos. He walked around the property. He was trying to recall some different things that happened back then. But again, he would say it's just been so many years, and he's obviously been investigating a lot of fires. But it was nice to meet him in person, be able to hear his thoughts looking back on that day. And unfortunately, the fire had destroyed the main house, the shed, and a motorcycle that was not in use. So there was some other farm equipment near the house in the cellar that was burned, of course, because it was all in close proximity to each other. Again, I know there were some questions in the Facebook group about the house. It was not, no one lived there. So the Pettys did not live there. There was nobody renting it. It was not abandoned. It was just vacant. So again, there was no electricity that Justin had mentioned previously. It was a property that they would go and Mr. Petty would try to clean up and keep as good as he could, make it look good as he could, I would say, if that makes sense. But it's a huge property, huge property. And Mr. Petty he's a tough guy, but it's a lot of work to keep that whole property looking good. But he definitely tries.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially for a man at his time in his early 70s.
I know. And again, he just drove. Remember when we saw him drive up in that big red truck? Were you there?
No, I was not there that day.
So he's like almost, he's in his 80s, and I don't know how tall he is, and he's so thin, and he's driving this big red truck. And it's like, how can you see over that? But, he gets out and he's, little compared to the truck, but he's adorable. Anyways.
Yeah, definitely.
So as we mentioned, Judy's remains were located in the cellar area. So the cellar was about 15 by 12, and it actually had 2 levels. So there was a top level and then a bottom level. There was a door to enter if you're on the first level. So there was a door that you could open and go into the cellar. Now, on the outside of the cellar, and we're going to post photos, and I think we've done it before when we were there, of the cellar and the stairs, but we're going to show you going down the stairs, kind of the inside area of where Judy was found at that time of the fire. So one of the things I think is important here is that if you think about the Wizard of Oz movie, this just came to me when I was writing this, is how the outside, the tornado's coming, the big cellar door, and Dorothy's trying to open it. So they actually had one of those doors, but it was not on at the time in 2008. So all anyone had to do was walk down the 4 or 5 steps to be in the lower level of the cellar. So there was no big door that had to be open or anything like that. It was just, you would walk down to the cellar. And then right at the bottom of the stairs to the right, kind of, or straight ahead, is where her remains were found. So anything more to that, Justin, that you want to add that you found interesting?
No, that was pretty cut and dry right there. I think it was, in the fire report, 32 feet from the house to the cellar. Mm-hmm. It was a little bit of distance. I mean, as we get further in the report, the specifics of the fire report aren't that bad. They laid out the property in feet, height. They gave wind gusts for the night, everything like that. So, according to the report, there were no burn patterns due to the extreme damage to the structure. But our arson expert, Alan, he believes there are burn patterns near where her body was found, and he refers to this as spalling. This is when concrete is heated to above 212 degrees, which results in the concrete to fracture. Mm-hmm. And when he comes on, he will talk more about that, but he feels they may have been referring to V-pattern burns. The only way these patterns would occur is if there are walls or a ceiling. So we will be posting photos from the fire that the family took to help generate more questions for Alan when we do that thread in the group about, any questions you might have for him. So you'll be able to visually see what we're all looking at. So that'll probably help you guys come up with some kinds of questions or, spark your curiosity, I would imagine.
Yeah, it was helpful when he circled things for us. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've all seen these pictures so many times, and we know that they're like, what's that? What's that? And then he's circling in red and blue, and he's like, this and this and this, and, a lot of red circles, which are flags for him that he'll talk about. But definitely, he is already a great resource because we're learning so much from him already that I'm so excited to talk to him.
Oh, and he's very interested in this. Very interested in it. And he's already given us a lot of information and questions that he has because, he does definitely have an opinion. That is for sure. He's a very nice guy and easy to talk to, though. Yeah,
and I think one of the things we can say, too, Justin, is that so far everything he's looked at, and he'll probably go into this more next week, is he does believe that this was a fire set to cover up another crime. So everything that he's
for sure,
everything, and that just confirms that what we've already known, right? What the family knows, what they said back then. Sure. But I think again, it's just another solid evidence that she was dead before the fire, and this fire was purposely set to cover up another crime.
I'm 100% sure we're all on the same page that the fire was set to cover up the crime. And I mean, if you still might have questions about why it would have been set, I mean, to get rid of evidence, point blank period. Right. I think we even talked about that in the first episode and the interview with the Petties and everything like that. So.
Yeah. I saw some comments in the Facebook group, going around about, the why and how, or, was it an accident or was it suicide? And, we'll definitely explore those in future episodes as well to explain why it wouldn't be those things.
We don't feel that way. Yep. Yeah. I mean, there wasn't even electricity there. I mean, there's no spark to be generated. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
There's no on-hand accelerant either. So, there's that. We do know there was a lot of debris and items that obscured them from finding Judy right away. Now, per the report, vegetation between the two structures was intact. Both investigators agreed that radiant heat was not a source for fire travel between the two structures. No other causations could be eliminated. The cellar, like I had mentioned, was about 32 feet from the house. Chief Hefner did confirm that wind gusts were about 33 miles per hour during the period of the fire that could have traveled from one structure and caused the fire of the other structure as well.
Right.
The end result of all of this was that the fire cause was undetermined, like I had said, and that's why we're allowed to talk about this publicly.
Right.
So
yeah, and so it's kind of which fire started first, where I would love to hear what Alan had to say. Was the cellar where Judy was the first fire, and just by circumstance with the wind that night and the wind, the way that the wind was blowing, did the house then catch on fire, or was it both set separately?
Yeah, I'm curious to see which direction the wind was blowing. I think that would probably help us out with that as well.
Right. I don't know off the top of my head. I thought it was moving from right to left when we were there, but I'm not sure. That's definitely something we can look at.
Yeah, which would have been from the house to the cellar. I mean, we also have to take into consideration the cadaver dogs going from the house to the cellar and back and forth, which could suggest that she was possibly murdered in the house and then taken to the cellar afterward. Something of that nature. It's hard telling, really.
It is. And so I think once we can kind of hear more from Alan on what he thinks with the fire and how hot, and actually my biggest question, and I don't think we're going to be able to really get a timeline on this, is how long this fire had to go, because for it to be how Mr. Petty found it on the next day, but everything was so dry and the wood was so dry that everyone's saying it would have only been a few hours maybe to get to that.
I think you guys are really going to like what Alan has to say because he has no qualms about stating his opinion on where this went wrong. So
right. And, this episode is pretty, as Jasmine said, pretty cut and dry. There isn't a lot of discussion to be had. We wanted to present this information first, break it down based on what the fire reports say, then generate questions, post some photos that we have that the family took, and then have the expert, Alan, who has a ton of ideas and thoughts on this already, be able to walk it through more in a discussion fashion so that, we can.
Yes.
We have a ton of questions for him. He has 3 pages for us. We have just as much for him.
Yeah, and we wanted to put this out first so you guys could get the information and you can ask him questions as well, but we figured having Alan on after we did this short episode would be a good compliment because that'll generate more conversation and more questions and more thought.
Yep, absolutely. So that's all that I have.
All right. Oh, absolutely. And next week's episode, when he comes on, it's going to be substantially longer, so...
Yes, it will, because it'll allow us to ask him so much. And he says he has lots of questions for us. And I was like, welcome to the club. We all have questions on this case and what was done or didn't. And
yeah, absolutely.
So. All right. Well.
All right. Well, Melissa, appreciate it.
My pleasure. And always have a good week.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You
all
too.
Right.
Get all your Christmas shopping done?
No. I just got my tree up. Have you got your tree up?
No, the only Christmas decor I have anywhere in my residence is the leg lamp from A Christmas Story.
Justin.
That's the only decoration I put up.
Really?
That's literally
You don't have a tree?
No, absolutely not.
Why?
No, my boys are old enough now. They don't care. I don't know. I'm just freaking Scrooge, I guess. I don't know.
Justin Scrooge.
I mean, the leg lamp's enough.
It is not.
That speaks for itself. Everybody knows exactly what's going on with that. And they're like, this guy is festive. And it's like, yes, I am.
That's the craziest thing.
I don't need a tree.
You need a tree. You need a tree. So, do you even have lights up?
No.
So where do you put presents?
No, I can't be, no. I'm not going to be bothered by that. Halloween's my favorite holiday anyway. I go all out for that, but what do I do with presents? My kids are teenagers. They want money.
I still make my daughter, she's 13. We both did the tree today together.
Yeah, they do decorate the tree with their mom and stuff. My boys' mom is very, very festive, and like there's this whole night where they bake cookies and do decorations and do the tree and everything. And
Yep.
my boys sometimes partake in that, but they know with me it's just like, we really just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? I don't either.
Go to
So we're not
Dad's
going
and we
to.
got the lamp up. We're good.
Pretty much, yeah. Fragile.
Just bring me some cookies. So, awesome.
Oh, yeah, it's good times.
Okay.
All right. Well, until next week, Melissa, I'm sure we will be in contact throughout the week, and I will talk to you later.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Bye.
Bye.